Slate. There is no beginning. We saw Lewis laid down, when there was not much but thunder and volcanic fires, watched long seas plunder forts, laughed as Staffa cooled. Drumlins, blue as bruises, were grated off like nutmegs. Bens and a great glen gave a rough back we like to think the ages must streak, surely strike, seldom stroke, but raised and shaken, with tens of thousands of rains, blizzards, sea-poundings, shouldered off into night and memory. Memory of men, that was to come. Great in their empty hunger, these surroundings threw walls to the sky, the sorry glory of a rainbow. Their heels kicked flint, chalk, slate. Post-Glacial. The glaciers melt slowly in the sun. The ice groans as it shrinks back to the pole. Loud splits and cracks send shudders through the shoal of herring struggling northwards, but they run steadily on into the unknown roads, and the whole stream of life runs with them. Brown islands hump up in the white of land. Down in the valleys, a fresh drained greenness loads fields like a world first seen. And when mild rains drive back the blizzards, a new world it is, of grain that thrusts its frenzied spikes, and trees whose roots race under the stamped-out remains of nomad Grampian fires. Immensities are mind, not ice, as the bright straths unfreeze. The mirror. There is a mirror only we can see. It hangs in time and not in space. The day goes down in it without ember or ray, and the newborn climb through it to be free. The multitudes of the world cannot know they are reflected there. Like glass they lie in glass, shadows in shade. They could not cry in airless wastes, but that is where they go. We cloud it, but it pulses like a gem. It must have caught a range of energies from the dead. We breathe again, nothing shows. Back in space, ubi solitudinem faciunt pacem appellant. Ages drum tap the flattened homes and slaughtered rows. The Picts. Names as from outer space, names without roots. Bess, son of Nanamovez, Blies Bluetooth, that wild buffoon, throned in an oaken booth, weary Adarnon, brilliant Uskon boots, Canutu Lachama, who read the stars. Where their fame flashed from, went to, is unknown. The terror of their warriors is known. Naked, tattooed on every part. The hairs of the groin are shaved on greatest fighters. The fine bone needle, dipped in dark blue woad, rings the flesh with tender, quick assurance. He is dupercartite, rich pin. Writers like us regain mere pain on that blue road. They think honour comes with the endurance. Guaranteed good pronunciation. Colloquy in Glasgow. God, but le son du cœur, Columbus sighed to Kentigern, est triste, au fond so warm. Frater, said Kentigern, I see no harm. J'aime le son du cœur, when day has died, deep in the bois, and oyster-catchers rise before the fowler as he trudges home, and Sermo Lupi loosens the grey loam. À l'horizon lointain is paradise. À best silentium, le corps éclate. Et meurt, Columba mused. But Kentigern replied, Renaît et se prolonge. The cell is filled with song. Outside, puer cantat. Veni venator, sings the gallus kern. The saints dip startled cups in Mungo's well. Matthew Paris. North and then north and north again we sailed. Not that God is in the north or the south, but the north is great and strange, a mouth of baleen filtering the unknown, veiled spoutings and sportings, curtains of white cold. I made a map of it. Here I have bristly Scotland, almost split in two. What sea lochs and rough marches, old forts, new courts. When Alexander their king is dead, will they live in love and peace, get bearings, trace mountains, count stars, take capes, straits in their stride, as well as crop and shop, bring luck home? Pelagus vastissimum et in vium, their element, my margin, waits. Thomas Young, M.A., St Andrews. Yes, I taught Milton. He was a sharp boy. He never understood predestination, but then who does within the English nation? I did my best to let him see what joy there must be in observing the damnation of those whom God makes truly reprobate. The fair percentage does not decreate heaven, but gives all angels the elation they are justly decreed to have deserved. We took a short tour up to Auchterarder, where there are strong, sound sergeants of the creed, but John could only ask how God was served by those who neither stand nor wait. Their ardour rabid, he said, to expunge virtue's seed. Lady Grange on St Kilda. They say I'm mad, but who would not be mad on Hirta, when the winter raves along the bay and howls through my stone hut? So strong they thought I was, and so I am, so bad they thought I was, and beat me black and blue, and banish me, my mouth of bloody teeth, and banish me to live and cry beneath the shriek of seabirds. And 8 children too we had, my lord, though I know what you are, sleekit Jacobite, showed you up, you bitch, and screamed outside your close at Nidri's Wynd, until you set your men on me, and far I went from every friend and solace, which was cruel, out of mind, out of my mind. (1893) A Slav philosopher in Stronach-Lacher, Vladimir Solovyov, looked down the loch. The sun was shimmering on Birkensoch. This beats the fishy vennels of St Macher, he said, and added, Inversnaid tomorrow. A boatman rowing to him from infinity turned out to be a boatwoman. Divinity, he cried, shake back your hair and shake back sorrow. The boat was grounded. She walked past him, singing. To her, he was a man of 40, reading. Within him the words mounted, Sing for me, dancing like wisdom before the Lord, bringing your mazy unknown waters with you, seeding the northern lights and churning up the sea. (1983) A parrot Edward Lear Drew has just died. There was a young lady of Corstorphine who adopted a citizen orphan. It shrieked and it cried. They threw far and wide her ashes right over Corstorphine. Zoos guard and pamper the abandoned squawkers. Tickle stories from the raunchy talkers. Shoulder a bold centenarian muse over artists deaf as earth. Oh, Lear sketched me, delirious old man, how he shuffled about, his tabby on the sill, a stew on the stove, a brush in his ear, and sometimes hummed or he buzzed like a bee, painting parrots and all bright brave things still. A place of many waters. Infinitely variable water. Let seals bob in your silk, or loll and mull where the lazy fringes rustle. Let hull and screw slew you round, blind heavy daughter, feeling for shores. Keep kelpies in loch lairs, eels gliding, malts mashing, salmon springing. Let the bullers roar to the terns, winging in from our North Sea's German ocean airs of pressing, crashing Prussian evening blue. Give Linns long fall, bubble divers bravely down to mend a cable you love to rust, and slant at night through lamplit cities, true as change is true, on gap-site pools, gravely splintering the puckering of the 'the 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 The Age of Heracleum. The jungle of Glen Eagles was a long shadow on our right as we travelled down. Boars rummaged through the ballroom's toppled crown of chandeliers and mashed the juicy throng of giant hogweed stalks. Wild tramps with sticks glared, kept a rough life. South in Fife we saw the rusty buckled bridges, the firth raw with filth and flowerheads, dead fish, dark slicks. We stood in what had once been Princess Street. Hogweed roots throbbed underneath for miles. The rubble of the shops became the food of new cracks running mazes round our feet, and west winds blew past shattered bricks and tiles, millions of seeds through ruined Holyrood. Computer error, Neutron strike. No one was left to hear the long all clear. Hot wind swept through the streets of Aberdeen and stirred the corpse-clogged harbour. Each machine, each building, tank, car, college, crane, stood sheer and clean, but at a shred of skin, a hand, a blackened child driven like tumbleweed, would give the lack of ruins leave to feed on horrors we were slow to understand, but did. Boiling fish-floating seas slopped round the unmanned rigs that flared into the night. The videos ran on, sham death, sham love. The air-conditioners kept steady sound. An automatic foghorn and its light warned out to none below and none above. The summons. The year was ending and the land lay still. Despite our countdown, we were loath to go, kept padding along the ridge, the broad glow of a city beneath us, and the hills swirling with a little mist. Stars were right, plans, power, only now this unforeseen reluctance. Like a slate we could not clean of characters, yet could not read, or write our answers on, or smash, or take with us. Not a hedgehog stirred. We sighed, climbed in, locked. If it was love we felt, would it not keep and travel where we travelled? Without fuss we lifted off, but as we checked and talked, a far horn grew to break that people's sleep. Venice, April 1971. 3 black gondolas cut the sparkle of a lagoon. In the first, the Greek Archimandrite stands, a young black-bearded man in gold cope, black hood, black shoulder veil blown back in the sunny breeze. In front of him, his even younger acolyte holds high the glittering processional cross. His long black robe glitters with delicious silver flowers against the blue of the sky. In the second gondola, Stravinsky goes. The black fringe trails the lapping water. The heavy coffin dips the golden lions on the sides. The gondoliers are ankle-deep in roses. The coffin sways, crowned with roses. The gondoliers' white blouses and black sashes startle their brown arms, the shining oars, the pink and crimson flowers. And the third gondola is like a shadow where the widow goes. And there, at the edge of the picture, where the crowds cross themselves and weep a little in the Italian way, an old poet with white hair and hooded, piercing eyes leans on his stick and without expression watches the boats move out from his shore. Glasgow, October 1972. At the old Ship Bank pub in Saltmarket, a milk lapping contest is in progress. A dozen very assaulted Bridgeton cats have sprung from their starting blocks to get their heads down in the gleaming saucers. In the middle of the picture, young Tiny is about to win his bottle of whisky by kittening through the sweet half-gill in 1 minute 40 seconds flat. But Sarah, at the end of the line, self-contained and silver-grey, has sat down with her back to the saucer and surveys the photographers calmly. She is a cat who does not like milk. The Apple's Song. Tap me with your finger, rub me with your sleeve, hold me, sniff me, peel me, curling round and round till I burst out white and cold from my tight red coat and tingle in your palm as if I'd melt and breathe. A living pomander, waiting for the minute of joy when you lift me to your mouth and crush me, and in taste and fragrance I race through your head in my dizzy dissolve. I sit in the bowl, in my cool corner, and watch you as you pass, smoothing your apron. Are you thirsty yet? My eyes are shining. The Mummy. And the poem also has a note that the poem was based on a little news item, September 1976, saying the mummy of Ramesses II was met at Orly Airport by Madame Saunier-Satie. May I welcome your Majesty to Paris? I hope the flight from Cairo was reasonable. We have a germ-proof room at the Museum of Man, where we trust your Majesty will have peace and quiet. I am sorry, but this is necessary. Your Majesty's person harbours a fungus. Fungus, huh? Well, it is something attacking your cells. Your Majesty is gently deteriorating after nearly 4,000 years, becalmed in masterly embalmment. We wish to save you from the worm. Indeed, I know it must be distressing to a pharaoh and the son of Ra, to the excavator of Abu Simbel, that glorious temple in the rock, to the perfecter of Karnak Hall, to the hammer of the Hittites, to the colossus whose colossus, raised in red granite at holy Thebes, 16 men high, astounds the desert shattered, as your Majesty in life shattered the kingdom and oppressed the poor with such lavish grandeur and panache. To Ramesses, to Ozymandias, to Louis XIV of the Nile, how bitter it must be to feel a microbe eat your camphored bands. But we are here to help your Majesty. We shall encourage you to unwind. You have many useful years ahead. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Yes, well, Shelley is dead now. He was not embalmed. He will not write about your Majesty again. The Hall of Fame has many mansions. Your Majesty may rest assured your deeds will always be remembered. You woman, beautiful woman, no woman for thousands of years. Your Majesty, what are you doing? Your Majesty, you'll break your stitches. I really hate to have to use a hypodermic on a mummy, but we cannot have you strain yourself. Remember your fungus, your Majesty. That's right. Cinquevalli. Cinquevalli is falling. The shining trapeze kicks and flirts free, solo performer at last. The sawdust puffs up with a thump, settles on a tangle of broken limbs. St. Petersburg screams and leans. His pulse flickers with the gas jets. He lives. Cinquevalli has a therapy. In his hospital bed, in his hospital chair, he holds a ball, lightly, lets it roll round his hand, or grips it tight, gauging its weight and resistance. Begins to balance it, to feel its life attached to his by will and knowledge, invisible strings that only he can see. He throws it from hand to hand, always different, always the same, always different, always the same. His muscles learn to think, his arms grow very strong. Cinquevalli in sepia looks at me from an old postcard, bundle of enigmas. Half faun, half military man, almond eyes, curly hair, conventional moustache, tights, and a tunic loaded with embroideries, tassels, chains, fringes, hand on hip with a large signet ring winking at the camera, but a bull neck and shoulders, and a cannonball at his elbow as he stands by the posing pedestal, half reluctant, half truculent, half handsome, half absurd. But let me see you forget him, not to be done. Cinquevalli is a juggler. In 1,000 theatres in every continent, he is the best, the greatest. After 8 years perfecting, he can balance one billiard ball on another billiard ball, on top of a cue, on top of a third billiard ball, in a wine glass held in his mouth. To those who say the balls are waxed or flattened, he patiently explains the trick will only work because his fears are absolutely true. There is no deception in him. He is true. Cinquevalli is juggling with a bowler, a walking stick, a cigar, and a coin. Who foresees how to please? The last time round, the bowler flies to his head, the stick sticks in his hand, the cigar jumps into his mouth, the coin lands on his foot, but is kicked into his eye and held there as a miraculous monocle without which the portrait would be incomplete. Cinquevalli is practising. He sits in his dressing room talking to some friends, at the same time writing a letter with one hand and with the other juggling 4 balls. His friends think of demons, but you could all do this, he says, sealing the letter with a billiard ball. Cinquevalli is on the high wire in Odessa. The roof cracks. He is falling into the audience. A woman breaks his fall. He cracks her like a flea, but lives. Cinquevalli broods in his armchair in Brixton Road. He reads in the paper about the shells whining at Passchendaele, imagines the mud and the dead. He goes to the window and wonders through that dark evening what is happening in Poland, where he was born. His neighbours call him a German spy. Kestner, Paul Kestner, that's his name. Keep Kestner out of the British Music Hall. He frowns. It is cold. His fingers seem stiff and old. Cinquevalli tosses up a plate of soup and twirls it on his forefinger. Not a drop spills. He laughs, and well may he laugh who can do that. The astonished table breathe again, laugh too, think the world a spinning thing that spills for a moment no drop. Cinquevalli's coffin sways through Brixton only a few months before the armistice. Like some trick they cannot get off the ground, it seems to burden the shuffling bearers. All their arms cross-juggle that displaced person, that man of balance, of strength, of delights and marvels, in his unsteady box at last into the earth. Remora. Hungry I am, but I feed on following. I never feed on the great chair of command and ask my thousands to bring platters. I bend my neck and wait on my lord. Parasites feed on parasites, and I believe I am in a middling sort of grind. The great one cannot shake me off, and in the end, if he is sick or failing, I find another great one, and I bind my little demand into his broad-backed slaughterhouse of blood.